Okay, so this isn't prepared, but I'm going to show you what I would do if, for example, someone wanted me to do an ebook cover for them. And it's very, very simple. And in fact, overcomplicating it often makes uh, what you're presenting, it often makes it worse. So let me just show you. Um, you might be able to hear my son in the background. He thinks he's a peacock, so uh, I can't really get around that. So what I'm going to do is, okay, I start with this, and I created this canvas because I just went online. I have no idea what a book cover size is going to be, so I went online and did a Google search, and I found a lot of different sites that said different things, but for the most part they said about 1500 by 1800. So we're just going to use that. And unless you're actually printing or doing a banner that's going to fit in a very specific area, the sizes can be just a teeny little bit off. You don't want them to be very, very off, or you'll have some issues. So what am I going to do here? Let's say I've got a friend. In fact, this is what happened to me recently. I had a friend who was writing a self-help book about relationships. So he said, hey, can I don't have much of a budget, but I have, about $100 that I could give you to do this, to do a cover for the book. And, $100 isn't really that much, but if you're saying $100 in 30 minutes, that's actually pretty good. So, and that's one of the keys here is you learn how to do things very quickly so that even if somebody can only offer you, let's say they offer you $50 or $75, you can say, okay, I'll do it for you, but I have to be able to, we're not going to do a bunch of revisions. We're not going to, whatever I give you has to be kind of what you take. So, if you try to narrow it down to say trying to make about $50 an hour, you'll do pretty good. And that's, very well paid, in terms of like the average. As a graphic designer, it's a little on the low side, but since you're not doing revisions is really where you kind of get caught up and you end up working a lot more than you thought you're going to work, because you'll work with clients and they'll be like, no, I don't like that. Change it over and over and over again. So just as long as they know that the revisions are not part of the price. This is running really slow. Okay, I'm going to open up my browser, and I've found a couple of free stock image sites. This one's called stocksnap.io. Another one that I've used for many, many years is freeimages.com. It used to have another name called sxc.co, but now it's called Free Images. And have to have an account, but you can have all the free images you want. And I already did a search. I used this I've probably used it over 10 years. And almost all the pictures are free to use. So I did a search for dramatic skies. And for some reason, the site is having some issues. So I'm not going to use this site. Here's another page that has a bunch of different free image sites. You just have to make sure that under the Creative Commons that you don't have to put a attribution, and that it's copyright free. So you don't have to pay any fees for it. So as long as you have that, you can use it for whatever you want to. So just always make sure you check the Creative Commons. And if it does have attribution, it's not a big deal. You can just, put who the owner of the picture is in the book later. So here's some different options for stock images. I had already opened one. And like I said, I actually use Dollar Photo Club just because I don't want any hassles. I want to make sure the pictures that I have are free and clear, so there's no problem if I want to use them with anything. But why don't we try this? I've never actually used Stock.io, StockSnap.io. So let's say, okay, my friend's doing self-help, so I'll just do a search for love and see what love comes up with. Now, I'm not sure if I actually have to have an account here or if it'll let me download the pictures. One of the things about the pictures that you download is you want to always make sure that you have very high resolution pictures, because you don't ever want to make a picture larger. And if you're designing a book that's actually going to be printed, you're going to need to have that resolution be at least 300 dpi, and big enough to fit the dimensions of your book. For this specific example, we're only doing an ebook, so the resolution doesn't have to be that great. Okay, so even on this first page, you've got some interesting pictures. There's nothing that I absolutely love here, and you want to have something kind of abstract, but these kind of all work. So for the sake of just moving on, why don't we just use this guy? So I'm going to click on that, and let's see what we get. Download high resolution photo. No thanks. You can see all my pictures here. That was from my blog. So I'm just going to do, I guess I'll do save. Okay, let's do love. You like my Keith Richards picture there? Okay. And I believe, let's see. Let's open that. And there we have it. We have a high resolution image, and it is all free and clear to use. We can totally use this. Now, I don't absolutely love this picture, but I don't want to spend, an hour trying to find the right picture. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to click on it, copy it, and then paste. Now let me do a new layer, paste, and abracadabra. Okay, that didn't work. Let's just take this and put open with Photoshop. There we go. So that should open it. And I'm just going to have to drag that in over here. Now, as you can see, this picture is more than large enough. I'm going to click Control minus, and you can see that this picture is more than big enough to fit into this area. So I'm going to take it and hit Control T, and I'm just going to move it a little bit. Now, one of the things I like when I'm designing is to have that this picture looks a little bit too big for what it is. I mean, let's just say I'm going to put a fake title here. What I'll do is just drag this across like this and create a box up at the top, and this is centered. So I'm going to put how to, what do you say? Be in love. Terrible title, but whatever. Okay, and I'm going to make this. I'm going to go to my type channel, put that to 72. Actually, I'm going to go up here. So it's the same thing up here and down there. And just start scrolling upwards until this is the size that I want it to be. And we draw the box here so that this is always going to be in the middle and justified center to the book. So there we go. How to be in love. Now this does not look very good at all. Okay, so what can we do? Now I think this is a little bit too big. So what happens if we want to make this smaller? But we still want it to fill up the page. Well, one thing that I do a lot of times is, I kind of like it there. Luckily at the top it fills up the whole page, but on the sides it doesn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click a new layer and go over to the stamp tool, and I'm just going to click on this, and I'm going to copy this over here to the side. Okay. Click that. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And make it so we just kind of stretch out the sides here. Make it look like it's all part. We'll smooth it, make it look a little better in a second. That looks pretty bad. Okay, hold on. Let's figure this out. we go. Okay, it does not look great, especially these little areas. So maybe we can. I'm going to hit, I'm going to blur that just a little bit. That doesn't look better. You know, a lot of this is just kind of eyeballing stuff. I think we can kind of keep with that. Now, one of the things that I always do just to give it a certain look, I'm not sure what you would call it, but I always give a little bit of a, I darken the edges just a little bit, and that focuses you towards the center. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. I can do that with a couple of different tools. I can go down to the adjustment layers and do a gradient. Let's see. I'll do a circular. I'll pick my gradient, do circular, or radial, sorry, and then I'll make it backwards, and then make this big like this. So your focus will go towards the center, and I'm going to multiply that. And these are all things we've learned before. So you see now everything kind of focuses in towards the middle. Now I'm going to change this How to Be in Love. Don't really like that color. And one thing to do to make everything look like it fits together is I could come over here and do white like that. And that actually doesn't look too bad. But sometimes what you can do is pick a color from the actual picture like that. And it will fade just a little bit better, or kind of pick something halfway in between. So there we go. How to Be in Love. Kind of getting there. Now we're going to need, this has a natural separation. So if you look here at the top, you've got this blue going into orange, and then like kind of a black line here. So why don't we use this black line to separate the page? And we can take that, and I'm going to copy these. I'm just going to go ahead and merge them all together into one picture. And I'm going to push this up a little bit. I'm going to grab this part, just select that on this layer, and then hit Control T and drag that down. Now we're going to have to look, I'm going to hit Control plus and see just how bad this is looking so far down here. And it looks like the rocks. It actually looks a little more interesting because it looks like they're standing on these rocks that are going down. So far it just doesn't look that bad. And what we can do is add another layer and put a little gradient. Add a little gradient right there. Okay. I'm going to hit Control on that layer. I'm going to hit Control I, make it backwards, and then I'm going to hit Multiply again. So yeah, it's that looks a little better. I'm going to take away the opacity just a little bit. Let's say 75. Okay. Now instead of dragging a new layer, text layer, I'm just going to select that one. Now what I do when I'm trying to find the right text layer, so if I'm over here somewhere and I want to get up, I want to find where the text is, I usually just come over here, grab the text tool, and then put it over where the text is, and you see it'll change. That little block disappears. So I'll click on that twice. Well, I don't have to click on it twice. Now I know that layer is selected. I'm going to hit Alt and Shift and drag it down, and you get all these nice little guides. And I'm going to move that down to the bottom. And I'm going to put by John Doe. Okay, now this is a common problem that you run into. These two titles are now kind of fighting with each other because they're the same font and they're both have the same caps and everything. So what you want to do is change one of these so they're not competing with each other. So I'm going to double click on this guy, and first of all I'm going to make them a lot smaller. That's too small. Let's try 72. Okay, by John Doe. And to be honest, this doesn't look very good like that. So I'm going to try and make this all caps and see what that does. And this is the all caps button. So by John Doe. I'm still not loving that. Something about it just doesn't feel balanced, right? Okay, so maybe I can maybe I don't need this. That's probably not very pro. And what if I put spacing between the letters? Now you can only put additional spacing between letters like this and make them really wide if everything is caps, okay? Nothing makes me more crazy than when somebody takes writing that's got caps and lowercase and spaces it out, because it's kind of a typographic faux pas. So, that's not right. So, but I can do this with the John Doe on the bottom. So let me space this out. I'm just going to do 200. Okay, now this is looking a little better because now these two aren't competing, but I don't like this font very much. So I'm going to make this bigger, but I'm also going to make it lighter. So I'm going to do, Open Sans regular light. Okay. And that to me actually is looking better. We can try to How to Be in Love. We have two kind of different parts. So maybe if we make Be in Love gigantic, because that's the real important part here. I'm going to set the spacing a little different. Now I'm not, if you're a typography person and you're listening to this, you will most likely be biting your tongue right now, because I'm not I don't know typography that well. All I can tell you is what I think looks good versus what looks unbalanced or looks off. But so I can't always tell you exactly why I think something works better. It's just a kind of feeling. Now, I don't really like this either. It just looks off balanced. Okay, so, but we're getting there, okay? The John Doe thing, I like that, but it's just a little too bright. So let's click that, and maybe we can try this blue over here. We can sample some of the blues. Okay. How to Be in Love. Now, what is wrong with this? What can we do to make this look better? Okay, maybe we can take this back. I'm going to, make this all the same again. Backspace. Let's change this all to 72. Actually, okay, let's just change it to 140. Okay. There we go. Move that down a little bit. I think we need to move this up just a little bit. And we can, since this is all black down here, let's just move that down. What did we do? What did I do? Okay, let's move this down. Okay. There we go. And one thing you can do to kind of adjust things and see where you are is just to hit Control minus, 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 and see how it looks. Now you want to make sure that the title is clear. You want to make sure it's nice and big. So, all right, I'm going to leave that how it is for just for now, but I'm still not happy with this title. Now, another thing that I would do to this, if I was just creating something for a friend, and I don't know, how long has it been? It's been 18 minutes. So we're kind of on our way. One thing that I like to put underneath the title is a little bit of type. I'm not sure why. When I was a kid, you'd look at a title and it would have a little bit of copyright information or whatever. Small type, for whatever reason, just makes me feel like something is more official. So I would love to put like a little subtitle here just to add, so the name of the book isn't just So Alone. So, The Secrets to a Happy Life. Okay. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to make it small. Let's see how this looks. Make it a little bigger. Okay. Now, the problem we're going to run into with these guys is they're competing again. They're the same fonts. So maybe I can make this a little more bold. Make it the color a little. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're going to put less space between this and the top, and maybe we can do caps on one. And sometimes you'll find fonts that do really well together, like a script font. Let's try like a handwriting font. I've got one called Dear 4 Regular. Now this is getting more towards the, you know, classic, what do you call it, romance kind of style, I guess, that you would see. And I'm not crazy about it, but you can see why it's appealing, because now the How to Be in Love isn't competing so much with the name below it, and we've got everything kind of has its own place. I think this is pretty good. Another cool thing you can do is add a little bit of texture over the top of this to give it just a slightly better feel. So I'm going to take, did that just pop up? I'm going to take this guy. Now this isn't the perfect image. You can also go to the same free stock image libraries, and a lot of times they'll have options like old paper or, you know, old metal or concrete or whatever, and you can use those different materials to give your book or whatever, you know, you're trying to create just a little bit of texture and make it look a little bit more real. So I'm going to take this, Control T, let's see, just kind of move that so it fits. Okay, enter. Okay, now we're going to come over to our blending modes and go to overlay. And that looks pretty terrible. It's just a little too much. So we can bring the opacity down. And to be honest, I don't know that I would use overlay for this. Let me try something in the overlay family though. So let me try soft light. That soft light's like a, you know, just a softer version of overlay. So this is getting us something. Hard light is like a hard version of overlay, but that's, I think soft light's our man here. So soft light, okay. And just so we don't spend a huge amount of time with this, I'm going to put the final touches on it. Now, you know, if I was going to do this for real, I would want to make sure all of this is, well, let me try to clear that up a little bit. One thing you can do is take a, you know, I'm going to drag this down, make a copy, and I'm going to do Gaussian blur. So blur, Gaussian blur, and, you know, make an alpha channel, and then let's see. We've learned all this stuff. You guys know this stuff by now. Pick a brush size, make it pretty big. Actually, I'm going to just, oops, that's not what I meant to do. I'm going to get my brush and hit the curly brackets to the right. I'm just going to make this really big, and I'm going to hit black. So there we go. That's all right. It's not the best, but it kind of, you know, one of the key things in photography and the key things in design and, you know, art in general is to focus the eye. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We can take the gradient and make it a little bit big, a little more. There we go. Too much, too much. Back off a little bit. Okay. Now, I don't like the colors here. If you want it now, you know, another thing that people do is they'll put a little white strip over here. This actually looks pretty good, but if you wanted to, you could grab you know, the rectangle tool and draw like a little line. This is a little kind of passe. I mean, it's, you know, and then bring this down to like 20. And so you'd have like a little separation there. Now this isn't really my style for book design, but if you've got a friend who's doing self-help, chances are they love this kind of thing. So, you know, I think this kind of works. It's not great, but I mean, for the sake of time, we've only been at this now 24 minutes, Jeez. Okay. So let me wrap this up by doing a little color treatment on top. The thing I usually do, I'll do curves. And here's it's on my other monitor, but let me drag it over. Here's my curves. And of course we can play with this a little bit. Can drag that up. Play around with the curves just a touch. You know what? I'm gonna get rid of that because I really don't like that. And the thing is, the curves is going to affect everything underneath here, like we said. So it's going to change the color of your text a little bit. Let's do our blue. This is the one that I think is really going to change it. Bring that up. Bring this down. There we go. Yeah, that to me is starting to give it that look. Sometimes when you're working on these, you're not sure how it'll look until you do the overlay on it. So I think that's looking kind of cool. Maybe bring up the red a little bit. There we go. You don't want to do it too much because you don't want to make it look like a mistake. So, and then you can take that and do a lot of different things to it. Now I think that looks fairly decent. I might, you want to kind of start adjusting things. I might want to take down this guy a little bit. I might want to take him and, overlay him upside down and add some more to it. You could add if you want to add, I don't know, a black box around it. So you could do that. Let's see. Fill, nothing. We didn't really cover this. I don't really use this that much, but there's our stroke. 3, let's do a little more. Okay, and make sure that, I'm going to zoom in, make sure that lines up with everything. Here we go. Now, there we go, okay, and we could change that if we wanted to. Click on that line, maybe make it white, and maybe make it bigger. There we go. I don't really love that. But, those are the different options. And I'll try to come up with some different ebook covers to do. But for the most part, that's kind of how I put together an ebook. You want to have one central focusing image that displays kind of what the book's about. Have the title of the book. You don't want it to compete with anything. Have the author's name. You don't want that to compete with the name. You want to have them just a little bit different. This is capitalized and spaced out. This is got caps and uppercase and lowercase put together. And anyway, so that'll do it for ebook design 101.